The Toshabin, or the Bildin, are the Jews that were living in Morocco. So the Toshavim means that they were Toshav, that they were settled there. And the Bildin we can call also the autochthonous Jews. So they spoke Arabic and Tamazight, the Judeo-Berber languages. And many of them actually lived in the rural countryside as well as in the imperial cities. They had a religious rite which was particular to the Bildin and which was actually in a book that had been published in Livorno in Italy, and it was called Ahavat Vekadmonim. So one of the interesting things to know is that in Morocco, there had been very early on, at about this time when the Sephardi came, there had been a printing press that the Sephardi arrived with, and there were a couple of books that were published, but after that, it stopped working. They shut it down, and so all the Jewish books of all the great rabbis from Morocco were published outside of Morocco, which means that the Moroccan Jewish community was very, very active in communicating with its intellectual neighbors in Italy. Livorno, especially Leghorn, was a very, very important city for Jewish manuscript publishing. And many Moroccan books were published in Leghorn, in Livorno, but many of them were actually published as far as Poland. So we have books that were written by Moroccan rabbis that are either in manuscript and that are still today in manuscript, and that are published in Leghorn or that are published in Warsaw or in different points of the map. So the Bildin were living, in many of them in Fez. They had actually undergone some difficult times of conversion, forced conversions, right before the expulsion. The Toshavim community had been weakened in the decades previous to the big influx in 1492 and after. And so that actually also added to the tensions between the communities, because the Sephardi came in and they had their very strong identities and very clear ideas of how to do things, and the Bildin community was trying to hold its ground even in their weakened state. However, this is a community that had been living in Morocco for almost 1,500 years already, and had very, very deep roots to the country, to their own rights, to their own traditions, and their own Masoret, their own Jewish traditions. So it's very important to understand how this layer and this dynamic worked between these different communities. The use of the prayer book Ahavat Vekadmonim actually continued in Morocco until the 1970s, where it was last used at the synagogue Slat El Fassin in Fez, which was recently, in 2013, re-inaugurated in a very important inauguration ritual that had members of the European Parliament, that had the Prime Minister of Morocco, and that had ambassadors and members of the Jewish community, as well as of the Muslim community in Morocco, in attendance. And Slat El Fassin was actually the last stronghold of this rite of Toshabin, of Bildin, in Fez, in the Mellah of Fez. And it was closed in the 1970s. And this project of its rebuilding, restoration, and reintegration was Simon Levy's last project that he did before his passing in 2011. So it's very important to think about this arc that we have of rites and of synagogues. Today we only have the Sephardi rite that is left in use in Morocco. And this Toshabin rite is no longer practiced.